everyone and welcome to today's lecture, which is going to be about classification of human strengths and virtues. My topic will be covering 6 objectives, which are: be able to understand the background and importance of classifying human strengths and virtues, be able to understand the attempts at classifying human strengths and virtues, be able to understand the criteria for selection of human strengths and methods for identifying them in values in action, classification of human strengths, be able to understand different human strengths, be able to appreciate the relationship between physical fitness and mental health, and be able to understand a relationship between character strengths and physical fitness or virtues. Now, let us start with the background of this topic. For a long period, psychology busied itself in studying negative, miserable, and squared aspects of human behavior. Psychology in general was a study of what can go wrong with the person. For instance, the Freudian school of psychology held a negative view of human nature. It was only with the recent advent of humanistic approach to psychology, a precursor to positive psychology, that the positive aspect of human nature started being explored. Given the 2000-year head start on the classification of illness and the more recent efforts to classify strengths and positive outcomes, it is quite natural to understand why we have better understanding of weaknesses than we do of strengths. First, let us understand what is strength. Linley and Harrington in 2006 defined strength as a capacity for feeling, thinking, and behaving in a way that allows optimal functioning in the pursuit of valued outcomes. Now, given the emphasis on illness in the 21st century, the classifications of illnesses which attained worldwide acceptance are World Health Organization's International Classification of Diseases, that is ICD, and American Psychiatric Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Illness, that is DSM. However, currently no classification of strengths and positive outcomes has achieved worldwide acceptance. Some classifications and measures, nevertheless, have been created, refined, and broadly disseminated in the last decade. These are: first one is the Gallup Themes of Talent given by Buckingham and Clifton in 2001 as measured by the Clifton Strengths Finder and the Clifton Youth Strengths Explorer. Second one is the Values in Action, that is VIA, Classification of Strengths by Peterson and Seligman in 2004 as measured by the adult and youth versions of VIA Inventory of Strengths. Third one is the Search Institute's 40 Developmental Assets by Benson, Lifford, Scales, and Bleth in 1998 as measured by the Search Institute Profile of Student Life, Attitudes, and Behaviors. Coming to the first classification, that is Gallup's Clifton Strength Finder. Over his 50-year career, Donald Clifton studied success across a wide variety of business and education domains. He based his analysis of success on a simple question: what would happen if we studied what is right with people? First, he believed that talents could be operationalized, studied, and accentuated in work and academic settings. Specifically, he defined talent as naturally occurring patterns of thought, feeling, or behavior that can be productively applied and manifested in life experiences characterized by yearnings, rapid learning, satisfaction, and timelessness. Likewise, Clifton viewed strength as extensions of talent. More precisely, the strength construct combines talent with associated knowledge and skills and is defined as the ability to provide consistent, near-perfect performance in a specific task. Second, Clifton considered success to be closely allied with personal talents, strengths, and analytical intelligence. Based on these beliefs, he identified hundreds of personal talents that predicted success in work and academics. Moreover, he constructed empirically based, semi-structured interviews for identifying these talents. When considering the criteria of objective measure of talent in the mid-1990s, Clifton and his colleagues systematically reviewed the data in these interviews and identified about 36 themes of talent involving enduring, positive personal qualities. The 34 Clifton Strength Finder themes are achiever, activator, adaptability, analytical, arranger, belief, command, communication, competition, connectedness, consistency, context, deliberative, developer, discipline, empathy, focus, futuristic, harmony, ideation, include, individualization, input, intellection, learner, maximizer, positivity, relator, responsibility, restorative, self-assurance, significant, strategic, and woo, that is, winning over others. Gallup developed a new talent classification system and a measure that is appropriate for children and youth, ages 10 to 14. This is called the Clifton Youth Strengths Finder and was released in 2006. Now, let us discuss the second classification, that is the VIA classification of strengths. The VIA classification serves as the antithesis of the DSM and it holds promise for fostering our understanding of psychological strengths. Peterson and Seligman make the point that we currently have a shared language for speaking about the negative side of psychology, but we have no such equivalent terminology for describing human strengths. The VIA classification of strengths provides such a common language and it encourages a more strength-based approach to diagnosis and treatment. Coming to criteria for our character strength. Peterson and Seligman in 2004 identified 10 criteria that a positive characteristic must satisfy in order to be included as character strength. Half of the character strengths included in their classification meets these criteria, whereas the other half does not. Therefore, they conclude that these criteria are neither necessary nor sufficient conditions for character strengths, but rather pertinent features that, taken together, capture a family resemblance. There are 10 criterions and let's discuss them one by one. Criterion 1. A strength contributes to various fulfillments that constitute the good life for oneself and for others. Although the strengths and virtues determine how an individual copes with adversity, the focus here is on how they fulfill an individual. Peterson and Seligman in 2004 defined fulfillment in Aristotelian notion of eudaimonia, which holds that well-being is not a consequence of virtuous action, but rather an inherent aspect of such action. As such, fulfillment is not to be confused with momentary pleasure, a view held by hedonists and Epicureans. Based on this understanding, Peterson and Seligman in 2004 came up with the idea that people possess signature strengths that they own, celebrate, and frequently exercise. Criterion 2. Although strengths can and do produce desirable outcomes, each strength is morally valued in its own right, even in absence of beneficial outcomes. In order to elucidate this criterion, Peterson and Seligman in 2004 differentiated between strengths and virtues, which includes courage, spirituality, etc. on one hand, and talents and abilities, which includes high IQ, physical appearance, etc. on the other hand. They hold that talents are valued more for their tangible outcomes than the strengths. Someone who does nothing with a talent like high IQ or musical skill could eventually disdain, whereas no such criticism is leveled against a person who has kindness or honest. Like, it is not said that a person did nothing with his wisdom or kindness. Said in another way by Peterson and Seligman, talents and abilities are squandered, but strengths and virtues cannot. Criterion 3. The display of a strength by one person does not diminish other people in the vicinity. Criterion 4. Being able to phrase the opposite of a putative strength in a felicitous way counts against regarding it as a character strength. Criterion 5. A strength needs to be manifested in the range of an individual's behavior, thoughts, feelings, and or actions in such a way that it can be assessed. It should be trait-like in a sense of having a degree of generality across situations and stability across time. Criterion 6. The strength is distinct from other positive traits in the classification and cannot be decomposed into them. Criterion 7. A character's strength is embodied in consensual paragons. Criterion 8. It is not believed that this feature can be applied to all strengths, but an additional criterion where sensible is the existence of prodigies with respect to the strength. Criterion 9. Conversely, another criterion for character strength is the existence of people who show selectively the total absence of a given strength. Criterion 10. As suggested by Erikson's discussion of psychosocial states and the virtues that result from their satisfactory resolutions in 1963, the larger society provides institutions and associated rituals for cultivating strengths and virtues and then for sustaining their practice. Let's now talk about the strengths. When applying these criteria, Peterson and Seligman in 2004 came up with 24 character strengths categorized under the 6 core moral virtues that emerge consensually across cultures and throughout the time. The first one is the wisdom and knowledge. It includes cognitive strengths that entail the acquisition and use of knowledge. It consists of creativity, which is originality, ingenuity. It involves thinking of novel and productive ways to conceptualize and do things. Includes artistic achievement but is not limited to it. Curiosity, which is interest, novelty, seeking openness to experience. It involves taking an interest in ongoing experience for its own sake, finding subjects and topics fascinating, exploring and discovering. Now, open-mindedness, which is judgment, critical thinking. It involves thinking things through and examining them from all sides, not jumping to conclusions, being able to change one's mind in light of evidence, weighing all evidence fairly. Love of learning. It involves mastering new skills, topics and bodies of knowledge, whether on one's own or formally. Obviously related to the strength of curiosity, but goes beyond it to describe the tendency to add systematically to what one knows. Perspective, which is wisdom. It involves being able to provide wise counsel to others, having ways of looking at the world that make sense to oneself and to other people. The second core moral virtue is courage. It includes emotional strengths that involve the exercise of will to accomplish goals in the face of opposition, external or internal. It consists of bravery, which is valor. It involves not shrinking from threat, challenge, difficulty or pain, speaking up for what is right even if there is opposition, acting on convictions even if unpopular. Includes physical bravery but is not limited to it. Persistence, which is perseverance, industriousness. It involves finishing what one starts, persisting in a course of action in spite of obstacles, getting it out the door, taking pleasure in completing tasks. Integrity, which is authenticity, honesty. It involves speaking the truth but more broadly presenting oneself in a genuine way and acting in a sincere way, being without pretense, taking responsibility for one's feelings and actions. Vitality, which is zest, enthusiasm, vigor, energy. It involves approaching life with excitement and energy, not doing things half-way or half-heartedly, living life as an adventure, feeling alive and activated. Third core moral virtue is humanity. It involves interpersonal skills that involve tending and befriending others. Love. It involves valuing close relations with others, in particular those in which sharing and caring are reciprocated. being close to people. Kindness, which is generosity, nurturance, care, compassion, altruistic, love, niceness. It involves doing favors and good deeds for others, helping them, taking care of them. Social intelligence, which is emotional intelligence, personal intelligence. It involves being aware of the motives and feelings of other people and oneself, knowing what to do to fit into different social situations, knowing what makes other people tick. Fourth core moral virtue is justice. It involves civic strengths that underlie healthy community life. It consists of citizenship, which is social responsibility, loyalty, teamwork. It involves working well as a member of a group or team, being loyal to the group, doing one's share. Second is fairness. It involves treating all people the same according to notions of fairness and justice, not letting personal feelings bias decisions about others, giving everyone a fair chance. Leadership. It involves encouraging a group of which one is a member to get things done and at the same maintain time good relations with the group. Fifth core moral virtue is temperance. It includes strengths that protect against excess. It consists of forgiveness and mercy. It involves forgiving those who have done wrong, accepting the shortcomings of others, giving people a second chance, not being vengeful. Humility or modesty. It involves letting one's accomplishments speak for themselves, not seeking the spotlight, not regarding oneself as more special than one is. Prudence. It involves being careful about one's choices, not taking undue risks, not saying or doing things that might later be regretted. Self-regulation, which is self-control. It involves regulating what one feels and does, being disciplined, controlling one's appetites and emotions. Sixth core moral value is transcendence. It includes strengths that forge connections to the larger universe and provide meaning. It consists of appreciation of beauty and excellence, which is awe, wonder, elevation. It involves noticing and appreciating beauty, excellence, and skilled performance in various domains of life, from nature to art to mathematics to science to everyday experience. Gratitude. It involves being aware of and thankful for the good things that happen, taking time to express thanks. Hope, which is optimism, future-mindedness, future orientation. It involves expecting the best in the future and working to achieve it, believing that a good future is something that can be brought about. Humor, which is playfulness. It involves liking to laugh and tease, bringing smiles to other people, seeing the light side, making, not necessarily telling, jokes. Spirituality, which is religiousness, faith, purpose. It involves having coherent beliefs about the higher purpose and meaning of the universe, knowing where one fits within the large scheme, having beliefs about the meaning of life that shape the conduct and provide comfort. Now let me bring your attention to the methods used to bring up this classification. During the process of coming up with this classification of human strengths and virtues, Peterson and Seligman in 2004 were confronted with the question: is it that these virtues are commonly valued in all cultures, or is it that there are exceptions with respect to certain cultures in their value for any of these virtues? In order to examine this question, Peterson and Seligman in 2004 studied early thinkers within the realms of philosophy, religion, politics, and education. The focus was necessarily interdisciplinary and cross-cultural. They also examined it empirically. Would the virtue catalogues of early thinkers within these disciplines converge? Would certain virtues, regardless of tradition or culture, be widely valued? For studying the works of early thinkers, inclusive and exclusive, criteria were employed by Peterson and Seligman in 2004. They limited the search to ancient cultures recognized for their influential and enduring impact on human civilization, and then further restricted their examination to written texts from these large-scale societies. In his broad survey, World Philosophies in 1999, Smart nominated China, South Asia, India mostly, and the West as the Great Three, the most widely influential traditions of thought in human history. Peterson and Seligman in 2004 followed Smart's lead and concentrated on these traditions, focusing more specifically on the dominant spiritual and philosophical traditions originating in each: Confucianism and Taoism in China, Buddhism and Hinduism in South Asia, and ancient Greece, Judeo-Christianity, and Islam in the West. Some of these works provided them an explicit list of the virtues like 10 Commandments or Eightfold Path. Certainly, an abstraction such as justice will mean slightly different things and will be valued for different reasons from one culture to another. Again, what Peterson and Seligman suggested is coherent resemblance. The higher order meaning behind a particular core virtue will line up better with its cross-cultural counterpart than it will with any other core virtue. Example, or of Confucian justice will have more to do with those Platonic justice than they will with Platonic wisdom. What they sought were instances in which the similarities across cultures outweighed the differences. Again, when the core virtue of a particular tradition did not have an obvious cross-cultural counterpart, it was considered as a separate entity in the final analysis. The literature review carried out by Peterson and Seligman, again in 2004, reveals a surprising amount of similarity across cultures and strongly indicates a historical and cross-cultural convergence of 6 core virtues: courage, justice, humanity, temperance, transcendence, and wisdom. Coming to the last classification, that is the Search Institute's 40 developmental assets. The Search Institute's developmental assets, which originally were conceptualized in the 1980s in response to the question, what protects children from today's problems, consider internal and external variables that contribute to a child's thriving. The Search Institute researchers, headed by Peter Benson, conducted numerous research projects and also held informal discussions and focus groups to ensure that the developmental assets included in their framework were applicable to all people, cultures, and settings in America. The Search Institute's 40 developmental assets are considered common sense, positive experiences and qualities, and are identified as reflecting primary contributors to the thriving of young people. The developmental assets framework categorizes assets according to the external and internal groups of 20 assets each. The 20 external assets are the positive experiences that children and the youth gain through interactions with people and institutions. The 20 internal assets are those personal characteristics and behaviors that stimulate the positive development of young people. Now, let us briefly discuss about physical strengths and virtues. Character strengths in physical activity. Kearns in 2015 writes the potential benefits of effectively identifying, cultivating, and utilizing one's signature strengths to enhance life satisfaction and well-being has gained considerable support in the last decade. A noteworthy finding of one such study conducted by Emmons and McCullough in 2003 was that gratitude may be related to time spent exercising. However, in this time there has been virtually no direct investigation into role that these strengths may play in the promotion, adherence, and satisfaction of physical activity. In fact, it appears that only one study has been conducted which specifically targeted physical fitness and health-oriented behaviors in relation to character strengths. Pryor, Gander, Valenzuela, and Rouch in 2013 recognizing the gap in the current research and perhaps heeding the call of Seligman to investigative positive health, set out to study the relationship between character strengths, health-oriented behaviors, physical fitness, and subjective health status. A sample of 440 adults between 18 and 75 years old completed the VIA-IS along with the measures of health behaviors, subjective health, and self-rated physical fitness. The results demonstrated significant correlation between certain strengths and each of the dependent measures. For example, self-regulation, curiosity, zest, leadership, and hope were positively correlated with overall fitness. In fact, all of the 24 strengths, with the exception of modesty and religiousness, were positively related to the health behaviors. The strongest correlation between specific strengths and health behavior were found in self-regulation, zest, kindness, honesty, love, and social intelligence. The authors speculate that utilizing one's strengths to a greater degree may endorse enhanced activity and engagement in life. Of course, this research is correlational, so it is entirely possible that people who are physically active develop these psychological strengths through physical activity. It should be noted though, the other studies found that lower scores in certain strengths predicted attrition. Therefore, one may speculate that strengths both influence adaptation and maintenance of physical activity and concomitantly the drops out from physical activity programs. A particularly interesting finding of the Pryor and his colleagues in 2013 study found zest, curiosity, hope, and humor were most strongly related to an active way of life. These relate to the strengths of the heart discussed in the Park-Peterson and Seligman study in 2004, which found these strengths were most related to life satisfaction. The significant overlap between the strengths which most strongly predict the satisfaction and the strengths most predictive of leading an active way of life suggests that this commonality may be more than coincidental. Additional investigation may help to further explore to what extent and in what ways these parallels relate to PA participation and motives. With evidence building for the efficacy of character strength interventions, the time is right to bridge the gap into the realm of physical activity. The well-established applications of other positive psychological characteristics such as hardiness and optimism have been effectively integrated into the health domain and PA. The successful employment of these concepts supports the argument for expanding the contemporary concept of character strengths to physical activity. In a nutshell, there has been the accumulation of the empirical evidence showing relationship between character strengths and physical fitness. It has been found that self-regulation, curiosity, zest, leadership, and hope are positively correlated with overall fitness. In fact, all of the 24 strengths, with the exception of modesty and religiousness, were positively related to health behaviors. The strongest correlation between specific strengths and health behavior were found in self-regulation, zest, kindness, honesty, love, and social intelligence. In sum, it is concluded that the classification of human strengths and virtues provides a positive alternative to the study of human nature. That brings us to the end of the topic. Thanks for watching.